Hello, and it's good to be back. I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This is where you get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, including news that the US trade deficit widened unexpectedly in November after a rise in the import of consumer goods. The figures show that the gap widened by 16% to $49 billion US. The markets were expecting the deficit to shrink, and it was the widest recorded since April last year. The news was perhaps less surprising in hindsight because China had earlier reported a sharp rise in its exports. Staying in the US, you will now know that the fiscal cliff crisis was avoided. But as at December 31st, America hit its debt ceiling again. It is currently using accounting tricks to pay the bills and will run out of money using these manoeuvres by mid-February. We've become inured to the endless congressional bickering about US debt, but the problem is still real. Many wacky ideas have been raised, like the $1 trillion platinum coin, but work goes on to find a more enduring solution. Over the weekend, the Democrats gave President Obama the okay to just bypass the debt limit. That would create another fight and would need to be tested in the US Supreme Court. Kicking the can has become a dramatic farce in Washington. In many US states, however, there is experimentation with other public funding ideas, some of them quite radical. These battles are important to us because they can impact on our exchange rate and demand for Chinese exports. We can't do anything about it, but it can affect us. Staying in the unreal world of sovereign debt, Japan is rushing towards a radical shift in their monetary and fiscal policies. This could affect us too, because Japan is the third largest economy in the world. New Prime Minister Abe has called for dramatic measures to get inflation back up to 2%. He is faulting the Bank of Japan for its current efforts and wants to replace its governor. Forgive the pun, but they are going for a nuclear option, aggressive fiscal and monetary easing on a massive scale. Among the radical ideas is the buying of equity stakes in major companies with printed money and forcing those companies to spend and invest. Japan's whole economic viability is at stake. Chinese trade data is coming under scrutiny. China's unexpected surge in exports in November renewed concern from analysts that these stats can be unreliable. We'll have more on this in today's Top 10. But the Australian Treasury remains optimistic that China is growing and will continue to feast on Aussie minerals. They are watching the current iron ore price rise, but the companies themselves are worried that it may not last and the price slump is a realistic possibility. Back here this week, the major news is the release of inflation data for December, which comes out on Friday. New Zealand dollar starts today at 83.6 US cents, 79.4 Aussie cents, and the TWI is at 75. All levels remarkably similar to the ones we ended up on Christmas Eve. I'm David Chaston, and that was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.